I mean, look, I was trimming my beard one day and had the wrong setting on the trimmer. I'm sure that's happened to everybody at some point. I just hit the wrong thing and I went through it and made a little gash right here in my beard. And that was the end of the week for me. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. There's no way I'm going out like this. Not because of the way it looked, but because I was like, dang, I just felt like it was cut off a limb, And so it makes me feel strong, confident, and to a blind person, that could be, something that they use that makes them feel strong and confident.
Welcome to The Glorious Beard. People will often ask me what this podcast is all about. When they hear the name Glorious Beard, it's kind of weird, right? One answer I like to give them is a lot of it's about understanding how beards have impacted the popular culture of today. And in today's episode, we have a great example of that. We're going to have a look at ways in which beards have impacted popular culture, both in the traditional sense and slightly more abstract. But first, we're going to talk about our Beard of the Month, sponsored by Badmaash Beards.
Hi guys, I'm Lewis Fox. Most people just call me Fox. You can find me on Instagram at redbeardfox with 2 X's. My beard is thick, bold and bright red. It's taken time, care and consistency to grow. I keep it clean, use natural oils and brush it every day. The key to a great beard? Look after it. Growing it's just the start, maintenance matters. I'm proud to be part of Bearded Villains East Anglia. We support local causes like helping veterans, mental health and the homeless. It's about brotherhood and giving back. I hope people remember my beard, not just for how it looked, but what it stood for. I'm Fox, this month's Beard of the Month. Thanks for listening and keep tuning in to the Glorious Beard podcast.
That was our Badmaash Beard of the Month. And speaking of Badmaash, our guest today is Khurram Moiz from Badmaash Beards, and he has quite the story to tell. Let me ask you this. Is it you who defines your beard, or is it your beard that defines you? For Khurram Moiz, there is no certain definition either way. He's the creator of the beard company Badmaash Beards and has had a life of twists and turns, powerful challenges, and intense connections. His journey didn't start with beard butters and oils, though, but instead, the scene opens with a young South Asian boy living in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, it's a really interesting journey, and it's got quite a lot of twists and turns. I was born in Pakistan. I was not there very long. My dad was working in the Middle East. He'd been there a few years. I only spent the first 3 years of my life there, but at 3 years old, we shifted to the Caribbean. So I actually had all of my preteen and teen years on an island in the Caribbean. That's where I spent most of my time. An extremely just surreal experience growing up, and probably something that is just very innate to my own character and my own kind of way of thinking. It really comes from this idea that, life doesn't necessarily need to move as fast as it normally does here, but at the same time, family matters, culture matters.
An intense move at such a young age can be jarring for some, but he didn't have to go through it alone. His family stayed closely connected to each other, as well as social life on the island, all throughout his childhood.
I'm actually the middle child of 3 brothers, and then I have a younger sister, so there's 4 of us. Coming from a South Asian background, living in the Caribbean, our family unit was extremely tight. Our nucleus was just very, very close. It's this group of folks, 6 of us, that are now on this island, completely new territory, really kind of blazing a trail here. Not many other folks with our general background, but we made it work. We got really integrated. My mom taught middle school there for the longest time.
While Khurram would certainly call the Cayman Islands home, there's a certain looming presence, the country of England. The islands were colonized by the English in the 1670s, and a little less than 300 years later, they became a hotspot for tourism. England was able to capitalize off of taxation laws and grow the banking industry. Rapid residential expansion began in the 1980s, and around that same time, Khurram moved to town. With Pakistan being a former British colony, there was another layer for him.
Yeah, so Cayman is a British colony, right? And so we have a governor appointed by the Queen. That presence is there. It's a little bit of a symbolic role. We have our own political system and way of governing ourselves. But I will say that what the colonization by the British, that influence for us was maybe a little bit at arm's reach, because we knew that Pakistan and India had been extremely impacted by that. Also Cayman, but we didn't feel as many of the stressors that came with that in the Cayman Islands, right? In Cayman, you didn't really feel that because the quality of life, the standard of living is relatively high. So poverty was not necessarily, it's something that I saw a lot of growing up. There was, of course, some of that, but Cayman just had a little bit of a different vibe, very much of a different vibe.
Living in the Caribbean certainly sounds like a dream, and for most people it is. However, there were bigger things for Khurram to do. He ended up moving to the United States, where he would receive his degree, and the change in atmosphere was pretty wild. While he was still surrounded by ocean in Florida, things were just a little bit different.
Massive culture shock. Listen, I didn't know racism until I got to the States. You know, in Cayman, all my friends were either Black or mixed or South Asian, had a bunch of white friends, and everybody just got along. If you saw photos of me from back then, my group of friends was everybody. It was such a great blend. Didn't really know it until I came up to college here in the States. I went to Florida State in Tallahassee, Florida, which is kind of like South Georgia. And yeah, it was really interesting. It was very much a culture shock. And I also had to kind of think about how I'm being perceived, not just how others are being perceived. But, you know, I came to the States with a little bit of a Caribbean accent, right? And immediately you could tell not only was this person not from here, but spoke a little bit differently as well.
While family had helped him to keep his feet planted in Florida, his circle naturally expanded, and he grew into his new social life, making a connection that he ended up keeping even to this day.
My closest friend ended up being this Indian guy from Hyderabad, Hindu guy, just super, super tight in a very, very quick period of time. I mean, we spent so much time together. We were actually living in the same apartment complex, realized that after a little bit that, hey, we're actually in the same apartment complex, got super close. And this is how you know that you're probably going to have a lifetime friendship with somebody, is when you actually get into a major fight with them. Because him and I got into this major tumble after maybe about a year of hanging out together, where we disagreed on something, and it was over his perception of a specific female. And I was like, that's not right. And he didn't want to back down, and I didn't want to back down. And oh man, in the parking lot, just arms were thrown, elbows were thrown. It was crazy. He tried to run me over with his car, all kinds of stuff. It was a green Toyota Tercel back in the day. And yeah, a couple of days later, we made back up, and still super close.
In order to create stable and lifelong relationships, Khurram had to learn how to connect. This knowledge came from his mother, whose background in education would inform her ability to form bonds.
For me, something my parents taught me, and really I want to say a lot of this came from my mom, is that as an educator, she understands the nature of somebody. In order to be able to teach them or share something with them, you have to really understand where they're coming from. What is their temperament in general? Being able to have a high level of EQ in that way, I think is something that I learned from my mom, and something that I think has been super helpful for her as she's navigated, globetrotting in her own life with a whole bunch of kids and her husband, and trying to get assimilated in a place where just even finding spices that she's used to are not necessarily available. But understanding where folks are coming from and being able to connect with them.
The ability to connect. It's a vital part of all of our lives, but for some, it comes easier than others, while sometimes it comes in ways that you would never expect. Coming up, Khurram's life changes once again through connection, and he begins to find his way in America. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
From masked black figures to the ever-young and ever-charismatic Howl, Studio Ghibli founder Hayao Miyazaki has created some of the most iconic animated characters in recent history. Spanning his many movies like Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Castle in the Sky, Miyazaki's films have produced a cult following alongside its loyal fan base. Just as Miyazaki's identifiable beard has allowed him to become one of the most recognizable modern filmmakers, the distinct styles within his animations have given him a reputation that might even rival that of Disney. Most recently, an internet trend using AI to create images of people's likeness in the Studio Ghibli style brought the technology to the animator's attention. When asked about it in an interview, Miyazaki scorned it, rejecting the idea of using it in his work at all. In the video of the interview, you could see the way his white beard emphasizes the disapproving lines on his face and gives him an aura of wisdom as he challenges the other artists in the studio, imploring them to listen to his plea. He tells them, "It is an insult to life itself."
僕はこれを自分たちの仕事をつなげたいとは全然思いません。極めて何か生命に対する侮辱を感じます。
Miyazaki's memorable comebacks aren't something he started recently, though. After American producers cut 22 minutes from the Nausicaa of the Valley of Wind in a botched 1985 English edition, Miyazaki became wary of American producers. It was only 10 years later that he finally allowed one of his movies to be altered for Western publication. And it came with some caveats. One of those was his particular no cuts rule, which he emphasized by sending not a message, but a literal katana to the producer's doorstep. Perhaps the funniest example of Miyazaki's dedication to his craft is his retirement, or rather, his many failed retirements. Although it's clear just by looking at his fraying gray beard and his long legacy of work that he's well within his rights to bid animation goodbye and live the rest of his life peacefully, Miyazaki always manages to sneak back into the studio. It seems as though every year he announces the end of his career, and then, months later, instead returns to reveal a new movie. Most recently, Miyazaki released The Boy and the Heron in 2023, 10 years after he first claimed to retire. While some thought this film would finally be his last, his coworkers admitted he still arrived at the studio each day to plan his next hit. Even as he ages, as his beard gets lighter with each passing year, he proves time and time again his love for art and animation. Aside from his animation, Miyazaki himself is probably most well known for his stubborn personality and his blunt speech. Both within his stories and in real life, he never shies away from passing along a message he believes in, whether it is controversial or not. Oftentimes, these instances themselves have become as iconic and attached to his brand as his notorious beard. In fact, we here at The Glorious Beard couldn't help but notice that Miyazaki's facial hair almost references his drawing style. The way his sideburns and beard frame his face seem remarkably similar to the cartoon-style outlines that his movies are known for. And it begs us to question whether art inspires life or the other way around. Either way, we hope that learning about Miyazaki's perseverance, bravery, stubbornness, and of course his beard will inspire you all to appreciate the art in life and advocate for yourselves. Though perhaps threatening people with a sword might be a bit much.
Thank you for listening to The Glorious Beard. Remember, you can always find us on Instagram, YouTube, and probably a whole lot of other places by searching for The Glorious Beard. Also, we have a website. It's www.thegloriousbeard.com. Today's episode is sponsored by Badmaash Beards, and our guest today is Khurram Moiz from Badmaash Beards. Right now, you can hit the affiliate link in the description of this podcast to get 15% off your first order at Badmaash Beards. Now, let's continue our conversation. The ability to connect with others would eventually lead to one of the most important relationships in his life. That is, of course, with his wife. His career then led him to Atlanta, Georgia, where he was intent on creating roots. Romance wasn't exactly a focus. He was much more intent on establishing himself. It just so happened that a get-together hosted by friends would lead him to meeting the absolute love of his life.
So end up going to this dinner. As I am walking into this building, this restaurant in downtown Atlanta, this lady walks up and she's with her brother, some mutual friends of some mutual friends. And she comes up and I get introduced to her brother, Ali. And he goes, oh, and this is my sister, Fahim. And I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And she was just a little bit, looks like she was a little bit chilly. So I said, and this is not really usually my vibe. I'm not this guy. But I was like, do you want a jacket? Are you okay? And she goes, oh, no, that's fine. Which I think was also pretty weird. And maybe just like, who is this random guy offering me a jacket? Funny thing is, I didn't have a jacket to give her. So if she said yes, this whole plan would have like fallen apart. Not that there was a plan, but this is what I was doing. And so she goes, no, it's okay. We're going to this dinner. And I kid you not, like, I didn't even really sit next to her, but I saw her in the building. First time I ever met her, saw her kind of engage with a couple of folks. At one point near the end, everybody was kind of paying for dinner and she was in line. And I was like, oh, wait, you're not going to get your brother to cover you? Like, you should just make your brother pay for you. She goes, I can pay for my own dinner. And I was like, done. I'm married this lady.
For Khurram, the relationship roadmap was a bit different from American cultural norms. He and his wife would have to go through inverse parent trapping before they could actually say, I do.
Listen, we're a very conservative background. We don't date, right? So dating is not a thing. We did also need to be in a situation where it wasn't our idea that we wanted to be together. It had to come from a family kind of consensus of this makes sense for these guys. So what we ended up doing is really kind of arranging our arranged marriage. So really kind of setting up all the things necessary in order to do that. So her and I knew we wanted to be together. What we ended up doing is having some friends of ours introduce me as a friend of her brothers to her parents. Similarly, we did the same on my side of the house. Then we kind of brought ourselves together in front of our parents, and it had to get a little bit of permission, and that's how we ended up together.
Though Khurram may feel as though he's a little bit more reserved, his wife is a total social butterfly, and making friends comes naturally to her. On one particular occasion, she actually invited a new friend and her husband over for dinner, and in the face of an unexpected social interaction, Khurram would have to put his connection skills to the test.
He showed up, and now I'm forced in a situation where I have to talk to this guy. And I can talk to anybody, but really, do I want to be in that situation? Not everybody wants to be in that situation. So this guy comes over, his name's Omar. Immediately we were both probably a little bit standoffish because his vibe is also the same, right? He wants to be civil, he wants to talk. And our initial reaction was probably like, this guy's a dick, but we are now so close. This relationship has just gotten so awesome. And, we've done things like hike the Appalachian Trail together. And we've done things like do float trips here in Georgia for 2 days. And, been stuck in the rain in a thunderstorm for 2 days under our tents. So, stuff like that just, really established a very strong relationship for us. But I think it really came from understanding who this person is, just taking a moment. I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to be forced into having to make friends with somebody. But you know what? We're going to grill some food. We'll break some bread. We'll learn a little bit about each other, and hopefully what that does is that evolves into something.
Throughout our lives, we form many relationships, many friendships, and we also see those things come to an end at times. Some bonds may begin rocky, but slide into graceful ease. But others can sometimes hit you out of nowhere when you least expect. And for Khurram, one bond had no grace period. That was with his children. Through them, he's learned more emotional skills, such as learning how to ask the proper questions.
So I don't ask how school was today anymore. I don't ask how your day was because it'll always be good. My question is always something along the lines of, hey, what happened in this class? Or what did your teachers tell you today? Is there anything new that you learned? Or I love asking this one, who was doing the bullying at school today? And my kids are always like, there's no bullying, Dad. That doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know if that's true or not, right? I'm like that, Sabrina. I'm like, I think there's bullying, guys. You guys are a little sheltered. And then I go, hey, listen, if you think there's no bullying, then maybe you are the bully. And then I'm like, are you bullying people? And they're like, no, we don't do that. So the question is, if the question is like a one answer question, one word question, then it's probably not the best question.
Life can take many different paths, and the things that we grow up thinking about and fantasizing about becoming can drastically change over time. For myself, I wanted to be an astronaut, and now I'm sitting in front of a microphone. For Khurram, he's had many different paths, and Badmaash Beards is his passion project. His day jobs, however, have been various all throughout his life.
My journey has been really interesting. I went to college for chemical engineering. I've never worked as a chemical engineer in my life. I've been a consultant at Accenture. I was at Home Depot here in their corporate office. I've, been in finance and pricing and marketing, in analytics. So I've had quite a varied career. I've been working with large companies and with large consultants and vendors. And so for me, it's been very much a journey of not what job I want to do, but what challenge I want to take on next. That's really where my career trajectory has kind of how it's evolved. And that's also how this brand has evolved, right? Is me looking at this product or this line of products and going, hey, I can do that. This is something I can do. I know this space. Just both from how do I create something? How do I brand it? But then also, how do I make it so that it's true to what things that I believe? But yeah, for me, it was very much more about what's the next big challenge.
The current challenge is his company. It's called Badmaash Beards. And before looking into the brand, it's important to find out its origin. And what exactly does the term Badmaash mean?
What Badmaash means is rule breaker, mischief maker, right? It's the word that South Asian moms use when their son is beating up on his brother. Stop being a Badmaash. Or, when a guy is flirting with a girl at an event, everybody's like, oh, that guy's being such a Badmaash.
At some point in our lives as men with beards, we realize and come to that point where we think, I should really do something about my beard. Whether it's out of control or too wiry or just itchy, We all need a little bit of love and care. And as a man who realizes that he needs to do some beard care, being myself, it can be easy to just go to the store and pick up some beard oil, as there are literally a plethora of choices out there. However, it's much more rebellious just to make your own. And perhaps it's the rule-breaking nature of the word that led Khurram to create the beard care products that he has.
Listen, I started growing my beard about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I never had a beard. When I've tried in the past, it was too itchy. It would never stick. I wouldn't be able to kind of go through it. I started growing a beard, and I was in a retail shop, found some beard butter on the shelf, and I was like, hey, maybe I should start putting some product in here. And it looked kind of cool. It was relatively cheap. I was not going to spend a lot of money on it. Brought it home, popped it open, and it was just goop. It was greasy. It didn't feel good. I couldn't believe I just spent money on this stuff. I looked at it. It was like made in China. I was like, yeah, I don't know why I just bought this stuff. I tried it a couple of times, but then I looked at the ingredients and I was like, hey, I think I can make this.
The path to creating something is often fraught with a lot of ups, downs, and in-betweens. But once you get there, once you have that success, it can be very, very rewarding. When we come back, Khurram talks about everything that he went through in order to make his beard brand and how he got it to be successful. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Since the dawn of time, superheroes have been known for traits like their heroism, intellect, and combat, but never their beards. As superheroes change, so do their physical appearance, and many of them adopted beards as a way to symbolize that change and their newfound identities. Today, we're going to explore these changes and focus on some of our favorite superheroes, their unique beards, and the stories that come with them. And what better way to kick off our selection of super beards than with the star-spangled man with a plan himself, Captain America. When it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Captain America is always a clean-shaven, straight-laced kind of guy. But when he's forced to ditch the symbolic shield after the events of Captain America's Civil War, we see a much different Steve Rogers when he returns 2 years later for Avengers: Infinity War. His blackened outfit is drained of its signature reds and blues. His Avengers patches are torn away, but perhaps the most striking change was his new, glorious beard.
Your haircut? Notice you've copied my beard. Oh, by the way, this is a friend of mine, Tree.
I am Groot!
I am Steve Rogers.
Captain America's beard was such a hit with the fans, generating over 20,000 mentions on Twitter within a mere 7 hours of the teaser trailer's premiere. But more importantly, Captain America's beard marked a new chapter in his story. At this point, Captain America had been on the run for the last few years after refusing to sign his allegiance to a government he had lost trust in. This is a more rugged Cap, a nomad, if you will. Though we return to a clean-shaven look once again in Avengers: Endgame, one thing is for sure, this bearded look has got to be the best in all the lands. But what about a beard that isn't on land? How about we dive right into our next glorious beard, shall we?
Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas.
Let's take a break from Marvel and hop across the pond to focus on some of our favorite DC heroes. And more importantly, their beards. First up is Aquaman. Throughout his years in the Justice League, he has always been overshadowed by his more popular and successful counterparts, such as Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. However, thanks to recent betrayals of our favorite Fish King, he is being taken more seriously.
One true king.
Since the very beginning, Aquaman has been portrayed as a clean-shaven, short-haired ruler of the Seven Seas. Though at the time of his release it drew some attention, over time, he has been ignored and been downplayed to be some guy who talks to fishes. However, with Jason Momoa's portrayal of him, the audience has begun to change their opinion on the king. Now, with his long hair, long beard, more muscular look, fans have begun to take him more seriously and realize Aquaman is no joke. In fact, fans have said that Aquaman before the beard was seen as a young warrior, but was often not seen as a threat or powerful. Whereas now, with the beard and Jason Momoa's portrayal, he is seen as wiser, tougher, and a force not to be reckoned with. He is now seen as a badass and an equal counterpart to the rest of the Justice League. And it turns out, there's another laughed-at member of the Justice League that got a modern badass makeover. Next up is another underrated bearded hero, Green Arrow. With his signature pointy goatee, his Van Dyke beard has made him one of the more distinctive and recognizable characters in the Justice League. With beards often being associated with maturity and wisdom, Green Arrow has been shown to be quite sensible while still maintaining his tough and calculated exterior. His beard has effectively shown that in the comics and in the show, Arrow. And we gotta say, the Robin Hood style beard is pretty fantastic. How about we keep that trend going with our next super beard, shall we? Last, but certainly not least, let's stretch back over to the Marvel side of comics to talk about Reed Richards, better known as Mr. Fantastic. And a lot's changed with Reed since his first appearance in Fantastic Four #1 in 1961. Almost exclusively, he was portrayed as a clean-shaven, pearly-white scientist who occasionally had a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow when a dire enough situation called for it. But that all changed in Jonathan Hickman's Time Runs Out story, where he gives Reed a bold new appearance, a glorious beard. In this event, Reed is leading a secret team of superheroes in an effort to stop his universe from colliding with a parallel reality, which doesn't sit well with our other heroes, thus making him a fugitive with little time to shave. But the beard additionally adds an aura of mature wisdom and intelligence, fitting for the smartest man alive.
And the smartest man alive, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Hello, Stephen.
With John Krasinski's portrayal of Mr. Fantastic in 2022's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, his appearance in the new video game Marvel Rivals, and Pedro Pascal's take in the upcoming film Fantastic Four: First Steps, all sporting glorious facial hair, it seems that the older, wiser Reed and his beard are both here to stay, and we're glad to see it. We believe every beard has a story to tell, and that makes no exception to these legendary superheroes and the truth behind their glorious beards. Each beard is unique, and with these superheroes, their beards not only represented the changes they were going through, but also their identity.
The Glorious Beard podcast is proud to partner with Bridges for Brianna, a nonprofit working to prevent loss from mental health crises. Founded in memory of 15-year-old Brianna Dorgan, the organization connects individuals and families with the support and resources they need while helping communities talk more openly about mental health. To learn more, you can get involved by visiting bb4bpa.org, because no one should have to face this alone. Welcome back to The Glorious Beard. Today's guest is Khurram Moiz from Badmaash Beards. Like any startup, it did take some trial and error to create the Badmaash products, and home testing would lead Khurram down the path to where the product is today. But it did not come without some testing and trials.
So after destroying my dishwasher at home, I came up with a formula over multiple iterations that I really felt good about. It really made a lot of, like, it just felt right. It had, we were putting a ton of shea butter into it. We had various scents of this thing. I was cooking this stuff at home. I had this whole water bath situation going on. That's not scalable, right? That's not something that you can really make consistently even. It really requires a certain type of environment in order to get this thing right. And I can't continue to break my dishwasher. So basically, I ended up realizing that I could do this on my own. I found a manufacturer that could help me scale this and do it the right way, make it consistent, make a great product out of it. We designed the brand. We sourced all the materials, the box, the tins, etc. And, just kept checking the box, And before you knew it, it was a real thing.
In addition to putting all of his skills at the forefront of product creation, his wife was steering the packaging and the graphic design, and they created a brand to be proud of. But it's not always easy to get the word out, and there have been struggles along the way in connecting Badmaash to customers.
This is a massive industry with so many different products. And by the way, the mix of products that you'll find in a Sephora versus a local barber supply store versus, the kind of stuff that's in like a Walmart or Kroger, it's so varied. There's this local Atlanta barber supply store that I've been partnering with a little bit. I walked into his shop. I've never seen any of those products in a Walmart or a Kroger. I've just never seen them. And they're for very unique purposes. So the competition out there in order for your brand to stand out is extremely, extremely important. And so what is really the point of differentiation here across all these products?
While Badmaash Beards does continue to grow a steady base, Khurram hopes to make it even bigger. And ideally, like many entrepreneurs, he understands the struggle of getting your small business off the ground, of getting people to invest in your passion, and of simply just getting everything out there. But ideally, he aims to turn his passion project into his career.
The best way to do this is to do this full time. You've got to figure out a way to do this full time, because we have some great ideas about this. Everything takes longer when it is something that you are doing as a passion project. And I'm just, in the back of my mind, I'm going, I have to find some way where I could just focus full attention on this. And, maybe I get there one day, hopefully soon.
When it comes to any kind of care routine for your body, the quality of the products matter. And so do the beards that they're made for. Badmaash is a word that's rooted in South Asian culture, but its rebellious meaning can be universal. Khurram keeps a balance between retaining Badmaash's unique identity while also inviting every bearded person to the table.
It's for everybody. We don't discriminate. It's a South Asian term, but that South Asian term defines rule breakers, mischief makers, folks that are pushing the boundary, folks that are unbothered, right? Like being themselves. And we don't care if you have a big beard, a small beard. I have a relatively short beard. We don't discriminate. We want everybody to feel a connection here, because in the end, there's a little Badmaash in all of us, right? Everybody's a little bit of that, if not a lot. And so that's really the story that we're telling. If I take it just one click a little bit deeper. So first of all, for everybody, there is a South Asian cohort that is going to connect extremely quickly with this brand. That does not mean it needs to only live with this brand, with that cohort. But that is our stepping stone into the industry. That is a little bit of a point of differentiation, considering that you have all these other products out there.
As we all know, beards are not tied to any one culture, nor is the masculine connotation behind them. Khurram's aim is not to create a brand that is synonymous with the general theme of masculinity, but to make a product that helps everyone embrace the individuality of their identity. As a father, as a man, as a business owner, he continues to strive for connection through his own self-expression.
Every brand out there can't be another Viking brand for beards, right? Every brand out there for men can't just be something else with an axe on it, right? With my kids and our family, despite this kind of really varied background, we have a very singular identity that comes from having exposure to all these things. I'm probably the only Pakistani Caymanian American individual that you'll probably find in the world. There are probably about 5 of us, maybe tops 20 in the entire world. We have a very singular identity built off of all of these backgrounds and these experiences. And we've embraced it. You know, I'll go out and get some curried goat and ackee and saltfish all day, right? And that's what we've instilled with our kids. If this is what you're asking, is how does this my background translate to how I'm expressing my role as a dad, as a father, as the head of the household, I guess, is that, guys, be comfortable in your identity and be proud of your identity. We've got so many things at times that might feel like they're working against us, and so many debates that we could become a part of. And you shouldn't be afraid to have a conversation about things that are true to you and true to your beliefs, and embrace those beliefs and embrace who you are and stand up for yourself.
Identity, connection, these things matter, and they certainly matter to Badmaash Beards. Along with quality, it's probably the most important thing. And for Khurram, he takes pride in his product and the efforts and painstaking details that he's gone through in order to perfect it.
The quality of the product is phenomenal. I don't know if I told you this, but I may have mentioned it earlier, is that it's, our beard butter is more than 50% shea butter. And so I've had folks that have had eczema or a lot of flaky skin under their beard, that they're using this product and finding that is not necessarily an issue anymore. They're alleviating this itch that they've had for quite some time. So, and they want to maintain the beard because the beard is part of an identity, right? And people are proud to show off their beard, and there's podcasts about beards, right? So I think that there's an entire culture and identity around it. And I think that what this does is it helps folks get better care of themselves, but then also connect to a culture and an identity that maybe we didn't really have a lot of representation out in the market for.
An emphasis on representation has been a big part of Badmaash Beards. Creating a brand that's rooted in South Asian culture has allowed Khurram and others of similar backgrounds to relate. In fact, the name Badmaash alone has created cultural connections for one particular customer.
A South Asian customer of mine bought the product. His kids saw it and they're like, "Dad, what is Badmaash?" And he was kind of like, "My kids should know what this means," right? And it opened up this whole thing. And he was telling me this story. He goes, all of a sudden, I was like, I need to expose my kids more to my culture. Like, what is Badmaash? What is Badmaash? Guys, you guys are a Badmaash, And so now these kids are running around saying, "Oh, I'm a Badmaash." They're all excited about it. They've got a connection to the culture that the dad never even thought that they might have been missing out on.
Khurram's glorious beard is one that certainly deserves to be celebrated. His life has been a winding journey, defined by his unique identity and his emotional connections. From Cayman to Atlanta, he's learned to tackle challenges with a smile. His adventures teach everyone to never be afraid of a new experience, because it may lead to a lifelong companion, an exciting story, and your very own beard care line. And if there's one lesson that we've learned today, there's always time to grow and to evolve as a person. So continue to break the rules and continue to stay gloriously Badmaash. When you think about a fisherman, what image comes to mind? What physical features do you picture? A yellow hat with a matching raincoat? An unkempt, scruffy beard? Fishermen and beards appear to go hand in hand like bread and butter. The bearded fisherman may be just a stereotype considering the rough conditions out at sea. Facial hair offers protection and warmth from brisk weather and strong winds. The instability of the sea makes shaving a safety hazard, so beards become the practicality of life on the ocean. But what if beards and fishing are somehow interconnected? What if fish are attracted to facial hair? It seems that over the years, a brand new sport has been discovered: beard fishing.
Fear the beard. The beard jig. Yeah, baby.
For almost 10 years, bearded fishermen on YouTube have been participating in this peculiar activity. Hair jigs, formerly known as the marabou jig, have been around since 1957 and have been a reliable form of bait, especially in rough water conditions. It has been popular online for fishermen to create their own hair jig with a unique and personal touch, and men will use their own beard hair as bait in order to catch a fish. YouTuber Fishhawk gives a simple explanation on just how to do this.
I was thinking of some new ideas for some fishing videos, and as you can tell, my beard hair is getting pretty long. So what I thought of is to use my beard hair as bait, sort of like a hair jig. So I got these tiny little hooks right here, these little jig heads, and I'm going to either glue or tie some of my beard hair onto these jig heads and see if I can catch a fish. We'll probably go down to the river, maybe catch some smallmouth or some rock bass or some sunfish, something like that.
If you forget any supplies on a fishing trip, well, don't worry, because a beard will always save the day. Fishermen will take a jig head, cut and weave their beard into it, and cast their line. And the results, well, they're surprisingly effective.
Well, no monster, but I caught one on the beard hair fly.
The limits of beard fishing don't stop there. One YouTuber by the name of Monster Mike Fishing uses his beard as a fishing rod. You heard that correctly. He braids and ties fishing line to his facial hair along with a hook and fake bait, and then throws the line out onto the water, using his neck to reel in the fish. And that leaves the question: is there anything that a beard can't do?
Guys, I'm going to be setting the hook with my neck. This is scary. I can hook up on something monstrous and lose my whole freaking chin.
Tying beard hair to a fishing hook isn't the only way to attract a fish. The beard itself, submerged in the water, will do the trick just fine. One video on YouTube shows a man sitting in the shallow part of a lake with his beard underwater, and that's when a fish becomes intrigued, and then two more join its side. One fish is actually daring enough to even go for a nibble, and as soon as the fish feast their eyes on some facial hair, it then becomes a frenzy. It's safe to say that fishermen and beards have some sort of uncanny connection. For hundreds and thousands of years, beards have been aiding fishermen from their harsh work environment. But now, it seems that having facial hair can actually strengthen the art of fishing itself. Whether you're using your beard hair to get a fish to bite, reeling in a catch with your beard's powerful force, or simply allowing the beauty of your facial hair to do all the talking, it's clear that fish don't actually stand a chance against a glorious beard. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Glorious Beard Podcast. And a special thanks to our guest, Khurram Moiz from Badmaash Beards. Remember to click on the link in the description right now to get 15% off of your order of Badmaash products using the code GLORIOUSPOD at checkout. Our production director at JXB Media is Bob McCoy. Our executive producer is Joseph Kay. Our associate producers were Damian Miller and Sabrina Dene. Our fantastic writers for this episode were Joseph Kay, Gianna Matos, Jules Williams, Nathan Richards, and Bob McCoy. Our story editor was Joseph Kay. Special recognition to our social media team, who puts out all of the amazing content on our Instagram, led by Sabrina Dene. You can see their great work on our Instagram by searching The Glorious Beard. The people who made this episode sound really amazing in the editing room were Christina De La Torre, Ella Zeng, Alex Hoy, TJ Grau, and Bob McCoy. The smooth voices that you heard today came courtesy of TJ Grau, Bob McCoy, and Tyler Woodburn. Production assistance was provided by Kaylin Graff and Jade Wessener. The Glorious Beard is a production of JXB Media, a subsidiary of Top Secret Television Productions. Be sure to like and share and subscribe and follow and whatever other fun stuff that your podcast platform provides you to do to help us out. And of course, find us online at thegloriousbeard.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.